How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Dragon's Den. Today, we're going to be talking about dragons. Figure we'll call it the Dragon's Den. It's finally about time. So we're actually going to be talking about the Dragon. So, whenever I usually talk about commanders and commander decks and things like that, even if I don't give a full deck list, I give enough to make the vast majority of the deck, if not the whole thing. So, this one's a little bit different because I feel like this deck has a lot more variance depending on your play group. If your play group typically plays a slower game, you may be able to build this a little bit differently. Being in 5 colors and having such a high mana cost and everything else, to build it really, really fast if you play in a fast play group will be a lot more expensive, and it'll play a little different versus a slower play group where you might have to put in more mana ramp and play just a different style. So, this isn't going to have near as many cards. It's just going to have a lot of the cards that I really think you should be playing, regardless of kind of how you build the deck, whether you build it super expensive and really fast, or maybe on the cheaper side and slower, or just super consistent, or, there's a lot more variance in this deck, so I think there's a lot more that you need to change in this deck depending on your play group. But these are just cards that I think are all around really good and probably need to be in every version of this deck. So first, let's take a look at the Dragon. The Dragon costs Wooburg and 4 generic for a 10/10 legendary creature dragon avatar. It has an Eminence ability, which means it does something whether it's in the command zone or on the battlefield. As long as the Dragon is in the command zone or on the battlefield, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So it's mana ramp all the time, even from the very start of the game, making your dragons cost 1 less. It has flying, obviously. Whenever one or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards, then you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So if you swing with 5 dragons, you draw 5 cards, and then you put any permanent from your hand onto the battlefield. That seems pretty strong, so absolutely no complaints about that. So let's start taking a look at some of the cards that need to be in this deck. First, we have Herald's Horn. Herald's Horn is a 3-drop artifact. You name dragons when it enters. It's going to make your dragons cost 1 less, so an even more ramp. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So it can draw you up to 1 extra card every turn, on top of making your dragons cheaper to cast, which is really what you want to be doing, is just playing a lot of dragons. Dragon Lord Servant, another cost reducer, 2-drop 1/3, making dragon spells cost 1 less to cast. Urza's Incubator is a 3-drop artifact. You would choose dragon when it enters, and then your dragons would cost an additional 2 less to cast. Since this is a tribal deck and dragons tend to have fairly large mana costs, cost reducers are going to end up being a lot more efficient than outright mana ramp. Vanquisher's Banner is a good value piece, 5-drop artifact that's going to give all of your dragons +1/+1, and anytime you cast a dragon, you draw a card. Fist of Suns. Now, Fist of Suns is in here because it can actually end up reducing the mana cost of your commander by 4, because you can cast it for Wooburg instead of Wooburg +4. But then also, if you can manage to make Wooburg multiple times in a turn, it'll actually end up reducing the cost of a lot of your dragon spells, as a lot of dragons cost 6+. So you can get an additional discount that way. But it also pairs perfect with Morphon the Boundless. So Morphon, you would choose dragon. It would be a dragon, and then it would pump all your dragons by +1/+1. But it also says spells of the chosen type you cast cost Wooburg less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. So if you have Fist of Suns out that says you may pay Wooburg rather than pay, as an alternate cost, that means you can now cast every single one of your dragons for free. And then if you have something out like your Vanquisher's Banner, you're casting a dragon, drawing a card, casting a dragon, drawing a card, and you're going to do this until you've either casted every dragon in your deck, or you've just drawn into a bunch of lands and things like that, But you're going to be able to consistently play dragons for free over and over and over again. It pairs really well with that. And even if you don't have Fist of Suns out, Morophon, taking that colored mana and reducing it, along with your cost reducers and everything else, really takes a constraint off your mana and will just help your deck play it quite a lot more consistently. Soul Ring, obviously. Arcane Signet, again. Obviously, Soul Ring and Arcane Signet are going to be in every Commander deck ever. Chromatic Lanterns is in here. This is an old school mana rock. This was really, really prevalent when I first started playing, but it doesn't see anywhere near as much play now. But it's still very good in this deck because it's a 3-drop, tap to add 1 mana of any color, but it also says lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color, so it completely color fixes you, and you can just turn your brain off and play the game. That's why Dryad of the Elysian Grove is also in this. Now, this will give you an extra land drop on each of your turns, which will help ramp you, but it also makes all of your lands every basic land type, making them tap for every color of mana. So again, you can turn your brain off and ramp a little bit at the same time. Leyline of the Guild Pack, you can get it in for free if it's in your opening hand, but it also makes all of your lands tap for every color of mana because they will be every basic land type. So again, color fixing in a 5-color deck is super important, and these last 3 cards make it very easy to do that. Commander Sphere is just a 3-drop that can tap for any color of mana, but you can also sacrifice it to draw a card later in the game once you've sufficiently ramped and you just need more gas in your hand. Exploration, the ability to play an additional land on each of your turns. In 5-color decks, I tend to skew my decks more strongly towards green just because most of your mana ramp is going to be in green, and green will kind of just help you consistently get the other lands that you need and ramp into your bigger spells. So I like Exploration. Explore draws you a card. You can put an extra land into play. It ramps you, digs a little bit into your deck. It's just a good little value card. I actually suggest running this in most green decks. So, and Mirari's Wake. Mirari's Wake is a 5-drop enchantment, 1 white, 1 green, and 3 generic. Creatures you control get +1/+1, so you're going to pump up your whole team. And whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land can produce, so it's going to double your mana. So having double mana in a deck where most of your spells are really, really big, expensive spells is already going to be really good just off the top. But then the fact if you have something like Fist of Suns out, you'll be able to cast multiple spells in a turn extremely easily. Next, we're going to get into the dragons. First, we're going to start with Goldspan Dragon. Goldspan Dragon is 2 red and 3 generic for a 4/4 flying haste dragon. Whenever Goldspan Dragon attacks or becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. Treasure tokens you have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. So it makes treasure tokens, and it makes your treasure tokens tap or sacrifice for an additional mana. This can accelerate you. It's a 4/4 flyer with haste at its worst. And Goldspan is just, it's going to really help smooth out your deck as far as getting the extra mana and everything else, and also dealing some damage. Old Gnawbone is a 7-drop dragon, 2 green, 5 generic, 7/7 flyer. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. You're playing big dragons. Big dragons like to swing. Now you're turning all of that damage into mana to be able to play more big dragons. Old Gnawbone is absolutely incredible in this dragon deck. Utvara Hellkite is an 8-drop, 2 red, 6 generic, 6/6 flying dragon. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, put a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So, you swing with 6 dragons, you make 6 dragons. So basically, if you swing with your whole board, you're doubling the size of your board every single turn. Savage Ventmaw is a 6-drop 4/4, 1 green, 1 red, 4 generic. With flying, whenever Savage Ventmaw attacks, add 3 red, 3 green to your mana pool. Until end of turn, this mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as steps and phases in. So you're adding an additional 6 mana on each and every single one of your turns, allowing you to cast extra spells on each and every one of your turns. Very solid, very good. Atarka World Render is a 7-drop 6/4, 1 green, 1 red, 5 generic with flying and trample. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains double strike until end of turn, so essentially doubling your damage output which is going to help you finish out games. And with something like Old Gnawbone, which we saw earlier, can put a ton of mana onto the battlefield in that case. It synergizes with some of the other cards in the deck really well, and just doubling up your damage output is very, very, very strong. Tiamat. Tiamat costs Wooburg +2, so it's a total of 7 mana for a 7/7 Dragon God with flying. When Tiamat enters the battlefield, if you cast it, search your library for up to 5 dragon cards not named Tiamat that each have different names. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. So, you play Tiamat, you go search up your best 5 dragons, and then you'll have access to be able to play those in future turns. And then if you have your Morphon Fist of Suns combo out, it's just extremely good, because then you're casting all 5 of those dragons you just went and got for free, and you're just having huge explosive turns with Tiamat potentially. Tutors are an extremely strong effect in any deck that you play, but being able to go tutor your 5 best dragons and put them into your hand, that is extremely strong. Skithiryx the Blight Dragon is just a fun dragon. I like Skithiryx. It's a 2 black, 3 generic for a 4/4 flying dragon skeleton with Infect. You can pay 1 black. Skithiryx the Blight Dragon gains haste until end of turn. So if you have the extra mana, you can give it haste the turn you bring it in, and you can pay 2 to regenerate it. So having Infect means that whenever you deal 10 Infect damage or an opponent has 10 poison counters, they die. And so Skithiryx having Infect is pretty cool, especially since there's a lot of lords and things of that nature that are going to pump up your team, meaning Skithiryx can 2-shot people, and if you can pump it enough, even 1-shot people on its own. So Skithiryx is a fun card to have. Scourge of Valkus is 3 red and 2 generic, making it a 5 mana value card for a 4/4 flying dragon. Whenever Scourge of Valkus or another dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. So anytime you play a dragon, you're throwing some damage around. This can be used to eliminate creatures. This can be used to deal direct damage to a player's face. And then it has 1 red. Scourge of Valkus gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so it has fire breathing. Dragon Broodmother. Dragon Broodmother is 1 green, 3 red, and 2 generic, bringing it to a 6 mana cost 4/4 flying dragon. At the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 red and green dragon creature token with flying and devour 2 into play. So at the beginning of each upkeep. And the way this math works out is if you make a 1/1 on all of your other opponent's turns, and then you make your 1/1 on your upkeep, and that 1/1 devours the other ones, you are making a free 7/7 dragon every single turn around the table. Or maybe you have some of your pump effects out and things like that, and the 1/1s are good enough on their own, because the 1/1s are actually going to be like 4/4s or 5/5s or something like that because of all your pump effects. So Dragon Broodmother giving you free dragons is obviously very, very good. Scion of the Ur Dragon costs Wooburg, 4/4 flying dragon avatar. You can pay 2, search your library for a dragon card and put it into your graveyard. If you do, Scion of the Ur Dragon becomes a copy of that card until the end of turn, then shuffle your library. So this can become the best dragon in your deck anytime you need it. So say there's a certain effect you're needing, like you need the double strike from Atarka to finish out a game, but you don't have Atarka in hand or any draw or anything like that. You can activate Scion of the Ur Dragon. It'll become Atarka, and then you swing and all your creatures have double strike, and you're able to get that last bit of damage in. Next we have Terror of the Peaks. Terror of the Peaks is 2 red and 3 generic, bringing it to a 5 mana value for a 5/4 flying dragon. Spells your opponent's cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. So essentially it has Ward 3, but this was back before Ward was an actual mechanic. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. Dragons tend to have really high power and toughness and things of that nature, so it's just an extra bit of damage to throw around the board every single time you play a dragon. Next we have Scourge of the Throne. Scourge of the Throne costs 2 red and 4 generic, so it's 6 mana value for 5/5 flying dragon with Dethrone. Whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Scourge of the Throne attacks for the first time each turn, if it's attacking the player with the most life or tied for the most life, untap all attacking creatures. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So, as long as you're always making sure to swing at the player with the most life, Scourge of the Throne is going to get a +1/+1 counter on it, and you're going to get an extra combat every single turn, helping you really just get a lot of damage out on the board and helping you finish games very, very quickly. Once you start getting even just a couple of these dragons into play, they're all so strong, you're going to be able to finish games out very, very fast. Next, we have Bladewing the Risen. Bladewing the Risen costs 2 red, 2 black, and 3 generic for a 4/4 flying zombie dragon. Whenever Bladewing the Risen enters the battlefield, you may return target dragon permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then you can pay 1 black and 1 red. Dragon creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So that second ability works on all of your dragons, giving +1/+1 instead of +1/+0. So it can pump your whole team. But also, whenever it enters, you're going to be able to get a dragon out of your graveyard and put it into play. So this can really help you rebuild after potential board wipes, or it can also pair really well with Scion of the Ur Dragon, that you put whatever you put into the graveyard, you play Bladewing the Risen, and then Bladewing gets that creature back. Balefire Dragon. Balefire Dragon costs 2 red and 5 generic for 6/6 flying dragon. Whenever Balefire Dragon deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. So at base, it's a 6/6 with flying. It's going to be easy to get in. You hit a player for 6, they're going to lose 6 life because of the damage, and then every single one of their creatures are going to take 6, which in most cases will blow an entire player's board up. So most of the time, whenever you're swinging this thing, you're wiping one player's board at the same time, meaning that you're really just going to sway the game in your direction very, very heavily with Balefire Dragon. Next, we have Lathless Dragon Queen, which is 2 red and 4 generic, 6/6 flying dragon. Whenever another non-token dragon enters a battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying, and then it has fire breathing for 1 red and 1 generic. So now every time you're casting a dragon, which is something you're going to be doing very often, you're going to get an additional dragon, putting you 5 more power on the board every single time you do that, which is extremely strong. Then we have Miram's Sentinel Worm, which costs 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green, and 3 generic for a 6/6 dragon spirit with flying and ward 2. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token isn't legendary if that dragon is already legendary. So this doubles every single one of your dragons, even your legendary ones. So imagine having 2 Old Gnawbones, 2 Terror of the Peaks, 2 Balefire Dragons, 2 of anything. So doubling up your dragons, especially your really good ones, can help sway the game in your favor in such a way that if Miram is left unchecked, you will win the game. Dragon Tempest is actually a 2-drop enchantment, 1 red and 1 generic. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gains haste until end of turn, so now all of your dragons have haste. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. So it's giving you some extra damage to throw around the board. With something like Dragon Broodmother, this is absolutely a crazy card. But it fits in so well because it's a 2-drop, so you're going to be getting it out early and throwing out that extra damage around the table, getting rid of problematic creatures, or just dealing direct damage to players. This can finish games out. Then we have Bonehorde Dracusaur, which is 2 red and 3 generic for a 5/5 dinosaur dragon with flying and first strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exiled a land card this way, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. If you exiled a non-land card this way, create a treasure token. So it's impulse draw with extra benefits. So say you exile a land and a dragon. Well, now you're going to get a 3/1 red dinosaur, and you're going to get a treasure token. You play the land, you play whatever dragon there is, if you have the mana or whatever card that it might be. So impulse draw, making your deck run more consistently and giving you more power or more mana. This thing is just consistency stapled onto a card. And the fact that it's a dragon, so it fits so perfectly into this deck, is absolutely amazing. Dragon Lord Dramoka, 1 white, 1 green, 4 generic for a 5/7 Elder Dragon. Dragon Lord Dramoka can't be countered, which is really good. It has flying and lifelink, and your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So it can't be countered, and then it prevents anybody from casting spells during your turn, meaning that none of your other stuff can be countered, and then you're just going to be able to freely play on your turn without worrying about people having interaction and things of that nature. And then having lifelink too means that every time you swing this thing around the board, you're going to be gaining 5 life, which could really help mitigate some aristocrat style effects, or even where you might have taken damage earlier in the game. Kind of keep your life total healthy so that you don't have to worry so much about being killed out of nowhere. Hellkite Charger, 2 red, 4 generic, 5/5 flying haste dragon. Whenever a Hellkite Charger attacks, you may pay 2 red and 5 generic. If you do, untap all attacking creatures. And after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So now, every time you can pay 7 and you attack with this guy, you can get an additional combat phase. Additional combats in a dragon deck are just strong, and that's all there is to it. And finally, the last card we're going to talk about today is Sarkhan Fireblood. Sarkhan is 2 red and 1 generic, so it's a 3 mana planeswalker that comes in with 3 loyalty. You can +1. You may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So it's a form of impulse draw. Or you can +1, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells. So it's somewhat color fixing and ramp every single turn, allowing you to more consistently play your dragons. And then if you can get it to its ult, it's -7, create 4 5/5 red dragon creature tokens of flying. 5 vanilla red, dragons on their own may seem, it's like, oh, it's okay. But if you have something like Dragon Tempest out, it's a really strong ult to be used in certain situations. But most of the time, you're really either going to be using it to draw cards or to add mana to your mana pool. But it just really helps your deck run a lot more consistently. But that's really it. That's all I've got for you today and everything. This is, figured it's about time we talked about some dragons. Dragons are an awesome creature type. It's why I named my channel after them and everything else, they're really, really powerful. And this can be a very, very fun deck to play. Who doesn't love playing just really big, strong creatures and throwing that kind of power around the board? So with that being said, I hope you like what you heard here today, and I'll see you next time. Y'all have a good one.